Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about another fine in the UK for a Big Four accounting firm, and this time it's for Ernst & Young. And this story even made it all the way to the Wall Street Journal. E&Y was fined £2.2 million, or about $3 million, for the 2017 audit of Stagecoach Group PLC in the UK. And this was just another fine for a Big Four accounting firm. Seems like we keep getting more and more of these. And this fine was reduced from £3.5 million to £2.2 million because E&Y cooperated with it. And the failings identified by the FRC were in three main areas: defined benefit pensions, provisions for accident insurance claims, and onerous contract provisions. That's what the article says. And it's the FRC ordered EY to report to the regulator for 1 year regarding its work on the onerous contract provisions for Stagecoach, because EY is still the auditor for them, according to the article. And somebody at the FRC had the following to say: the audit failings in this case were extensive and related to a number of fundamental auditing standards. And E&Y had the following to say: regrettably, on this occasion, we fell short of the standards we set for ourselves and the standards expected of us by the FRC and society. And the FRC also fined an E&Y partner named Mark Harvey for his role in the Stagecoach audit. His fine was reduced to £70,000 from £100,000, so he was personally liable as well, and he was also forced to resign, or it looks like he was forced to resign from E&Y. But before we continue, I wanted to remind everybody this podcast is brought to you today by Voomer. And Voomer helps you ace your Big Four interview. And it helps you practice on questions typically answered on the interview. And if you use the link in the show notes, if you check out the show notes, there's a link in there, and it's tryvoomer.com/Big4, or you use the promo code Big4, you'll get 10% off their product, which helps you practice your interview skills. So back to the story about E&Y and their Stagecoach fine. We keep on getting these fines from the FRC in the UK. The FRC is the most active regulator for the Big Four accounting firms, and it's really changed the nature of their business from they're being forced to now break up their audit branches of their business and the rest of their consulting business in the UK. And there was also another story that came out about additional regulation from the FRC, where they want the Big Four accounting firms to have a different person that's the CEO of the Big Four accounting firms and the chairman. And KPMG has already did this after their CEO in the UK stepped down, but this is just another case of FRC pushing more regulations on the Big Four accounting firms. And I'm sure this will just continue to happen in the Big Four accounting firms as regulators think that they can regulate away errors and fraud. And I'm not really sure how that's going to happen. And these fines are always a couple years behind because it takes them a while to find it. And the Big Four accounting firms have to train their engagement teams over and over again. And it seems like slowly every engagement team is going to get fined something until somehow somebody's going to prevent all fraud or errors in the Big Four accounting firms. It's just, I think it's the nature of the business, because they're not making enough money, or they don't charge enough money for the audits they're conducting, so they cut corners. And a lot of times cutting the corners is just people doing the same as last year, not really diving in, not really asking questions, and trying to be as efficient as possible as the audit fees continue to decrease. And the Big Four accounting firms need to address this somehow, because I don't think separating the chairman role from the CEO is really going to change anything, because they're all going to have their Big Four background. And I'm not really sure how you would fill those roles to actually make them independent, because these people are all going to know each other, whether it's they work at the Big Four accounting firm or they're an accountant from somewhere else. It would really have to I'm not sure what changing the chairman role is going to do to prevent the things that the FRC is going to do. And I think further to that point, I think the big four accounting firms, especially in the UK, are basically becoming another branch of the government, because the government is just so worried about these businesses going under and their pensions and all the people affected by the pensions, that essentially the big four accounting firms are a branch of the government. I'm not sure why they're independent at this point, other than it's good to have them appear to be independent. And I think it's similar in the US, where it's you get these huge lawsuits or government penalties in the US as well, and it's just there's so much regulation on the big four accounting firms, and the big four accounting firms aren't doing a good job of pushing back either on government and the oversight and all the responsibility that's falling on accountants and public accountants as the catch-all of all errors and all accounting things. Something else needs to be done, but it's not regulation. It's not, or I mean, if it is regulation, it has to be around ethics and bonuses for people that do a good job, but also bonuses for people that are willing to learn the ins and outs of various accounting issues. For example, this Wall Street Journal article says it's onerous contract provisions. Well, then people need to be incentivized to learn that, rather than just sitting down and clicking through a presentation or a continuing learning presentation online. There has to be more incentive to that, because obviously they're not engaging people. The big four are just getting really good at issuing statements saying that they stopped short, and then they pay their penalty, or their insurance company pays the penalty. But as we continue to talk about in here, more needs to get done in this area. But that's the update for today. To get future updates, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and check out the show notes for ways that you can support us. Thanks for listening.